to Your Health is Your Wealth. My name is Arthur Duenas, and I'm your host for today. I'm also the owner of Back to Nature Health and Wellness Center, a local holistic center that has served the Baltimore, D.C., Virginia, Eastern Shore area for over 30 years. I want to take this opportunity to wish you and your family a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, and a very happy, prosperous, and joy-filled New Year. The mission of this show is not only to provide health promoting information, but to also present positive images and inspiring interviews. I am truly honored to have as my special guest today, the Honorable Carl Snowden.
Thank you.
He's a prominent civil rights activist, educator, historian. He's also the CEO of Snowden and Associates, a private civil rights firm here in Annapolis. He's also the founder and the chairman of the Caucus of the African American Leaders here in Annapolis, which I am a proud member. He's also the founder and chairman of the Dr. Martin Luther King Banquet Committee, Inc., and Fannie Lou Hamer. Welcome, Carl.
Thank you. God bless.
And thank you for taking time out from your busy schedule to be my special guest today. You know, Carl, it has been your depth of convictions, your breadth of interest, and also your height of ideas, your many accomplishments and contributions that have really gained you prominence and notoriety. And most important, the love, respect, honor, recognition of the community and local, state, and Maryland officials. I'm truly happy that you're here today. It has also been your influence, your personal power, your strong political will, your determination, and your grit to right the wrong, to stand for justice, to fight injustice, to make an impact in the community, and to inspire and touch and empower young people to follow their passion and to follow suit. So I'm truly honored today.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Now, before we talk about the Dr. King Banquet Award, which is going to be held January the 18th at La Fontaine Bleu, right, in Glen Burnie, and we'll go over the guests and why it's so important to keep Dr. King's legacy alive and to honor, people in the community who are making a difference. I truly want you to share your life story with our guests, our viewers, because we know the demographics are changing here in Annapolis.
Yes.
And you move quickly. You say you watch movies. I mean, the people watch movies and you watch people.
Right.
But trust me, you're being watched. I see you navigate in and out different circles, and you've masterminded so many wonderful things happening here in Annapolis. Can you tell us a little bit about your life, your accomplishments, your aspirations, and just bring us up to date on what's happening with Carl Snowden now? You've been in the trenches and on the front line at a very tender age.
Right. I'm a native Annapolitan.
Mm-hmm.
I moved into Annapolis at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up in a farm called Davidsonville,
Yes.
Maryland. And my mother, who's still living, she's 102 years old, we came out of Davidsonville, large family. I had 11 brothers and sisters.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a twin. I have a twin sister, which most people are not aware of.
I didn't know that either.
And
She's still living?
She's still living, yeah. She's very much, her name is Carla.
Okay.
And so we grew up on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a grandfather who's, by the way, his name was John Brown. That would be interesting, that name. My grandfather was a no-nonsense kind of fella. He really was. He was very much independent. I grew up during an era of segregation. Mm-hmm. And so my contacts with whites would not really happen until I moved into the city of Annapolis. I went to a segregated school called Carver Elementary School.
Okay.
And everybody at that school was African American. All the administrators, all the teachers, that was my world.
Okay. Where was that school?
It's in Gambles.
Okay.
So I'm living in Davidsonville, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
I get on a bus, drive past a white school,
Mm-hmm.
which was Davidsonville Elementary School, to go to a place called Gambles, to Crofton, it was in Crofton, to go to this place called Carver Elementary School.
Okay.
And it never dawned on me why I would have to leave a neighborhood to go to Crofton. That's the way I thought it was. It would be many, many years later that I would understand what was going on and why that was occurring. And probably one of the most significant events in my life was an event dealing with growing up with a little boy named Tommy. Tommy was my best friend at that time. We were inseparable. You saw Tommy, you saw me. And Tommy was like most boys his age. He loved his father. His father was a farmer. His father actually was what they call a sharecropper. And he did not know, neither did I know, what a sharecropper was. But that's what his father did. And his father was a tall black man whose vocation was farming and his avocation was hard work.
Wow.
Whenever you saw Tommy's father, he was always working. And Tommy had this ability to be able to take, in those days, a plow. He would put the plow to his back and plow up a field.
Wow.
He was a man that cut trees down with axe and cut up wood, and he did a lot of intensive hard labor. And he was a very quiet person. And whenever he spoke, you'd listen. He was that kind of person. He had a commanding personality. And Tommy loved his father. He loved him dearly. He admired his father so much that he would often say to me that my father, meaning his father, could beat Superman.
Wow.
He just had this great admiration for his father. And he would often tell me that his father could beat my father. Mm-hmm. And truth be told, he probably could. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was an incredibly muscular built man. Mm-hmm. And so we had this great admiration for him. One day while Tommy and I were playing in the summer, in August, in sweltering heat, just doing what boys do, maybe 5, 6 years old at the time, the man that Tommy's father worked for, who happened to be a white man, was coming from what was called the big house. And we instinctively knew that something was wrong. Just the way he was walking, the way he was behaving, made us think that something was awry. So when Tommy's father, when the man who worked for Tommy's father was coming toward us, in those days, kids were not to be seen nor heard. Exactly. You didn't get into grown-ups' businesses.
Exactly.
But both of us was curious. What was this man angry about? So Tommy and I ran down to where his father lived and positioned ourselves so we'd be by a bush. And we hid behind these bushes so we could see what was going on, but they couldn't see us. And Tommy's father's boss came to the house, knocked on Tommy's father's door. His mother answered, and he asked where was Tommy's father, whose name was Marshall. Called him Mr. Marshall. And Tommy's mother said something to the effect that he's in the house, and this man goes into the house, and there's this cacophony of sound. Looked like it took forever, but it was really just a few minutes. And out of the house comes Tommy's father, half dressed, no shoes on, and his boss is right behind him, and he's saying to him, if you don't come to work today, I want you off of my property, off my land. And then he used some disparaging words. Very, very nasty in his comments to Tommy's father. So Tommy's father's trying to explain to him that he's sick.
Right.
He's not able to come to work today. Right. And the guy spins around and says to Tommy's father, either come to work, or I want you off my property. And when Mr. Rossback was the guy's name, Tommy's father was protesting. He turned around and he shoved Tommy's father, who was off balance. And Tommy's father falls in the ground. Then he spits on him. In those days, you do what's called, people used to chew tobacco.
Right.
And it was not uncommon for people to chew tobacco in those days.
Absolutely. My great-grandmother did.
And when he spat upon Tommy's father, for me, that moment, the world came to a halt. Because I had seen Tommy's father, this man, the power that Tommy's father had, how strong he was. So I fully expected to witness a catastrophe. I fully expected Tommy's father to get up and do serious bodily harm to this man, who had just sped upon him. But Tommy's father did something altogether different, something I've never forgotten. Tommy's father got up and he started saying, "I'm so sorry, boss. Don't fire me. I come to work." And this man said something else to him, derogatory, and said, "If you want a job, you can get on up here and come to work." He walked away. He spun away and started walking toward the big house.
Right.
Tommy's father was getting up from the ground. As Tommy's father's getting up, he came into eye contact with both Tommy and I. We were hiding in the bush. We had seen the whole thing.
Right.
Tommy was crying profusely, and so was I. We had seen and witnessed not just the emasculation of a man's manhood, the humiliation of a person in front of his son and his son's best friend. We'd seen racism as raw as it could be. Tommy ran away. I never did know where he went, why, but I did too. I ran home. I ran to my mother to tell her what I had just witnessed. And my mother didn't want me to be bitter by that experience. So she tried to tell me what I had seen, I hadn't seen. Right? But I saw what I saw. And for people to appreciate that, they've got to understand the context of the times.
Absolutely.
Now, I went on and got a master's degree, and I've heard people tell me that you have to understand the sociology of the times. Here was a man, we got the civil rights that we have today, we didn't have then. And so he was trying to provide for his father and his family. And they wanted us to understand that his options were limited. But the problem with that analysis is 5-year-old boys don't understand that.
Absolutely.
They don't understand the sociology of the time. And so Tommy's father, this man that walked with this great dignity, never walked as upright as he used to walk. And Tommy never again, ever told me his father was stronger than mine. And it did something to him as a child. Did something to me as well.
That was going to be my next question, Carl. How did that affect you?
Well, I remember saying to myself at a very young age, I'm never going to let nobody do that to me. And as I got older, I would even expand that to anybody else.
Absolutely.
But it affected me profoundly. I never forgot that. And so when integration came for me, when I was able to go to a integrated school, which is Annapolis Elementary School here on Green Street, it was really my first contacts in a protracted way with whites in my interacting with white people.
Right.
But it shaped the way I viewed the world.
Absolutely. You had a different lens.
Different lens. And I began at an early age to understand that race does matter.
Yes, it does.
And where
yes,
you,
it does.
it just affects all kinds of things. So that was my first realization as a child of how racism works.
That was an awakening for you, I would say, at a very early age. Now, at 16, I believe, or you were in high school, you went to
Annapolis High School.
Annapolis High School, and so did I. I was the only African American in all of my classes, even when I graduated. So how was that experience for you? Because I know, as you said in your bio, as reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, which I also read, that affected you tremendously.
Yeah, I'd read the autobiography. In fact, the story about the autobiography of Malcolm X is this. An English teacher assigned us to read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And
were you at Bates?
No, I was at Annapolis High School.
Okay.
Had come from Bates, come to Annapolis High School, had been assigned, I was 15 years old.
Okay.
And I'd been assigned to read the autobiography of Malcolm X, who I'd never heard of Malcolm. Didn't know a word of it.
Right.
The cover was a strange cover because on the book it said, Malcolm X's book, it said that he didn't expect to live to read his book. So it was kind of curious.
Right.
So I picked up the book, and quite honestly, what I was going to do was just read some clip notes, and then, because we had to report on it, give an oral report, and then fake it, really. But I picked up the autobiography of Malcolm X, and the first chapter of that book is called Nightmare. And it's the first book ever in my entire life at that time that I read from cover to cover. I couldn't put it down.
Wow.
It was a mesmerizing book. It changed my perspective on everything. It answered questions I had never thought of.
Right.
It just changed me fundamentally. So when I had to give an oral report the next day,
Right.
it was like they had to tell me enough. I mean, it was that kind of, it had that kind of impact on me. When I was growing up, what was popular among young black boys was entertainers, the Temptations,
Right.
the Four Tops,
Right.
groups like that. And so people would get under a street light and sing,
That's true.
right?
Yeah.
And so people I grew up with were doing that. And I'll never forget, after reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, I just stopped moving from that. I began to be very much more serious
Right.
in everything I did.
You led a protest, right?
Yeah, we were at Annapolis High School,
Right.
and in 1969, there were no black mascots. The Panther was, even though the mascot was a Black Panther,
Right.
nobody black had ever had that. The cheerleaders were all white. So we were at a class assembly at what was called Maryland Hall today,
Right. Right.
and they were holding a high school assembly, and somebody in the back, because it was country music and all this, somebody was in the back said, "We want to hear some soul music," at that time. And the person who was the president of the Student Government Association took the microphone and he said the following: "This is our assembly. This is our program. If you don't like our program, you can leave." And when he said that, it created a hush in the entire room. Nobody said a word.
Wow. Wow.
It just created this silence. And I was there maybe for about 10 seconds.
Right. Right.
And then it dawned on me, he's right. If you don't like what's going on,
Right.
you should leave.
And that's what you did?
And when I got up, in the old days at Annapolis High School, when you got up from your seat, the seats would flip up like this.
Right. I remember.
So as I get up to leave, to walk out, suddenly flip, flip.
Wow.
150 black students walked out. And that began to become the protest that would eventually lead to a Black Studies program being implemented,
Right.
more black administrators being hired,
Right.
and my expulsion. I got expelled from high school.
I read that, and that's how you got to Annapolis.
How I got to Key School.
Key School, I'm sorry. Yes.
I was expelled from Annapolis High School.
But what grade?
I was in then the 10th grade. 10th
Okay.
grade.
Okay.
And the expulsion was for leading a student rebellion. And so I wound up going to Key School, and it turned out, as fate would have it, it's probably the best thing that happened to me.
Right.
Because I got introduced to a world
Yes.
that I didn't even know existed
Absolutely.
at the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it also was the basis of my later activism getting involved.
True. It's Key School. My daughter went to Key School, Miko, and my oldest granddaughter went to Key School. And I mean, the resources there that
Absolutely.
was available just offer them, many opportunities, especially for my granddaughter to travel. And she's bilingual. She teaches French. She now works at the World Bank.
Right.
3 years in.
Oh, that's
and,
terrific.
Yes, yeah, and I give her lots of credit in Key School. But Carl, we're just gonna have to do this again. My videographers told me we only got about 10 minutes left. So I want to fast forward a little bit because I could sit at your feet all day and listen to your life story because it's empowering, it's compelling, it's inspiring, and it really keeps us on our toes. Let's talk about some of your struggles because I know you have sued.
The FBI?
And yes, the FBI and with the county.
Yes.
Oh, county. Can you talk about that because of your
Right.
your activism
Well,
and your stand for justice?
Yeah, one of the things that happened is as I got more active in the community, J. Edgar Hoover, who's now deceased FBI director,
Right.
had a program, and the program was targeting people who were active in the community. They called it COINTELPRO. It was a counterintelligence program. And they would target people from Martin Luther King Jr.
Right.
all the way over to Malcolm X. And
Right.
they really made no distinction. And during the COINTEL program that I didn't even know was in existence at the time, I went to a lecture by Ralph Nader.
Okay.
It was at
Yeah.
St. John's College.
Right.
And I'll never forget this. Ralph Nader was speaking there in 75, and he said this was after Watergate, it was after a lot of the controversy. And there was a new program that they just started where they were spying on people, doing surveillance on active people. And Ralph Nader said, if you've been active in your community, you more than likely have an FBI file. Well, I, as a lark, sent a letter to the FBI asking whether I had a file, fully expecting them to say no.
Right.
What I got back was, yes, you have a file, and we're not able to tell you what's in it.
Right.
And thanks to a now deceased attorney, his name was Alan Liggum.
Yes.
He had just gotten out of college and got his law degree. We sued the FBI successfully. I'm one of the few Marylanders
Wow.
that ever successfully sued the FBI. And what we got was access to that file. And for people who might be interested, that FBI file, in its entirety, was given to the Maryland American Civil Liberties Union.
Okay.
If you go to their website, they got the entire file there.
Wow.
Because I wanted people to see what their government
Right.
was capable of doing to
Right.
people.
Right.
And remember, at the time they did the file on me, I was 15 years old.
Wow.
So from
You said
15 to 22, they had an FBI file.
Wow. You must have been considered a real threat.
I think,
Potential threat.
yeah, I think that's better. Yeah, yeah. And they, but we won. We won the
Right,
lawsuit. We
right.
got access to it,
Right.
and the rest is history.
Right.
And by the way, as you know, I'm doing a book,
Absolutely.
which I plan to do, just giving people some idea of what it was like to grow up in the city of Annapolis,
Right. Right.
to be politically conscious, and the price you paid for that, because there was a price to be paid.
Right. Right. What was your price? What some of the struggles? that
Well,
you
I
had
think
to bear?
many of the people are unaware of the fact that what government can do. It can be positive, but it can also be negative.
Right.
I've worked in government, as you know. I got elected to the city council.
Absolutely.
I served in the administration of Janet Owens, the first woman to become county executive. And I went on to become the director of the civil rights
Right.
for the Attorney General's office.
Right.
And what I quickly learned was that government can play a huge role in a positive sense or negative sense.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't realize what power government has.
Right. Right. Now, in 1985, you were elected as alderman, right?
Yes.
And you also spearheaded the removal of Arthur Giselle,
Yes.
the executive director of housing. Well, you've done some
Yeah,
work here. And even with Leopold.
That's right.
Am I right?
That's
that
correct.
was
In
hard.
fact, Leopold went to jail because one of the things he did was he used his police to spy on me. And this,
Yes,
and this is,
that's right.
he was the county executive, and again, this is in the last 8 years.
Right.
It's not like ancient history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you've been active all of your life. You've been a public service all of your life. You've been awake and you've been informing us of what's going on in the government and how we can also protect ourselves and our civil liberties. What is the King's legacy? What is Dr.
Well,
King's
as you know,
legacy?
on January 18th,
Yes.
we're going to be celebrating Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday.
Yes.
And Anne Arundel County is one of the it's the only jurisdiction in the entire state that has a memorial to Dr. Martin Luther
That's
King
right.
Jr. It's at Anne Arundel Community College.
You spearheaded that.
Yes, we raised $200,000, built this memorial,
Yes.
and turned it over to the community college. We also built the Civil Rights Foot Soldiers Memorial,
Absolutely.
which we just finished paying off. We gave that to the city of Annapolis
Okay.
so that people will never forget the contributions that Dr. King made. So at the LaFountain Blue, starting at 6 p.m., there's this annual memorial dinner honoring Martin Luther King Jr. And his legacy really rests with you and I and others who watch it. Because of Dr. King, all of our lives, regardless of your race or your gender or your sexual orientation or your religion, all of us have been rich because of Martin Luther King Jr.
Absolutely. And why is it important to create a memorial? I know you did one for.
Coretta Scott King.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Memorials are important because memorials tell people where they've been, and they're also a guidepost to the future.
Okay.
People never should forget who Coretta Scott King was.
Absolutely.
Most people know who Martin Luther King Jr. was, but they need to know who Coretta Scott King was. She was in many ways the wind beneath his wings.
That's right.
She was an incredibly powerful woman.
Yes, behind every great man.
Right. She made it possible for his birthday to be a national holiday.
Right, right.
And Coretta Scott King lived 38 years after her husband was assassinated.
And was still very active.
And she was active till the day she died.
Absolutely.
So I have great admiration for her.
Absolutely. Now, some of the people that are going to be honored
Yes.
at Dr. King's Banquet Awards meeting would be Mr. George Belt, Patricia Cole, Miss Eve Hurwitz, and the Midshipman First Class Aaron Lewis, Alderman Mark Rodriguez,
Right.
Congressman Dutch
Ruppersberger,
Congressman John Saul Burns, Vivian Spencer, and Wanda Ashley Williams.
Yes, and they're all worthy of it. I would just tell people tickets are on sale now. They can get their tickets by going to MLK CSK, www.mlkcsk.org. And with the minute we got left, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to come. This program is a very important program. It informs the community. You've done a great job yourself in making sure that people understand the importance of health. And for people who've been listening, they know I'm right now fighting a cold. But I want to thank you for your service to this community. It's a service that's well needed.
I'm eternally grateful to you.
Thank you. God bless.
Honorable Carl Snowden.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.